Okay, here we go. Latin America Part 2. Should be touching on Brazil and some of the central countries by now. We'll see what happens. Oh, there we go. The Amer.
Okay, so I don't know if when you were there, it felt like the music was playing. One day. Okay, so we've got highland areas. I want to make your eyes for a minute. And then we've got the big river. It's the what? The Amazon. Okay, and the Amazon River, which is part of the Amazon basin. And actually, you can see this is a meandering river, like we talked about before. And the whole river network, this is 20% of the world's fresh water. So again, this is a big deal. We have a limited amount of fresh water on planet Earth. 20% is here, 20% was in what? Lake what?
Good point to remember right here. Okay, and the lake is coming up. You'll hear it.
Yes. Now in this, it is not just in the Amazon River itself. It is also in its tributaries. So you have the Amazon, and then you have what are called tributary rivers. And you have your main river, and then you have smaller rivers that feed into the Amazon. And then you would have a smaller river leading into that river. So when we say 20% of the world's fresh water, that includes all of the tributaries, all of the little rivers that feed into the big river, into the Amazon.
All part of the basin.
And this is where the anaconda does live. The rainforest is what you're going to find around this area, and various people, whether it's in Latin America or somewhere else, who here has just been to the rainforest? You spent time in a rainforest somewhere. Okay. Well, the rainforest, and again, I've worked for over 25 years in Latin America, so this is my focus area besides all the other cool parts of the world. One of the things about the rainforest, when we look at the vegetation, has to do with the understory. So primary forest means that it hasn't been cut before. So if you...
Important point right there. Primary forest hasn't been cut. It's been primitively maintained.
The primary forest, what I thought when I went there, and I was all excited to get my machete and be super cool, and I'd walk around. I'm like, yeah, I'm all that. And I was all ready to get my way through the forest, But in the primary forest, I didn't need that. In the primary forest, actually, where it hasn't been cut, it's really very open. I could just walk underneath.
Good note.
All that vegetation I was ready for that wasn't there, why not? What's not getting down to that area?
Sun.
Yeah, exactly. You've got all these tall, awesome canopy trees, and they all connect up to each other, so it blocks the sunlight. So you don't get light that is actually coming down to the forest floor, so things have a really hard time growing. So the things that do grow are considered shade tolerant. Now, you will get where a tree falls down, and then actually sun will come in, and a bunch of things will grow right there, but that then, again, through succession, through many generations, those will grow into big trees, and these things, again, will only be ones that are shade tolerant. So when we look at the floor, you have these shade-tolerant plants. We think of so many of the house plants we have. It's a philodendron, but people often call them ivy, the ones that you just put it in, you give it a little water, and and you get these long, drapey things, and it's really awesome. It's because if you think about where you have a house plant, even if you have it near a window, and not all day, so it gets a little fleck of sunlight, and then from that, it is going to grow. So you're going to have big leaves in the rainforest, so they can catch any kind of sunlight that they can. So again, a lot of the plants we have, so there's a whole industry that's connected to the Latin American rainforest. And then there's some particularly interesting plants, and one is the matapalo. We have them in Florida too. In Spanish, matar. What does matar mean? To kill, and palo. Stick. Okay, so in this case, stick is referring to trees, the matapalo. We call it a strangler fig. But that's actually not what it does. You have a tree, a regular tree that's growing, la 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 la, and then you have something like a little bird comes in, shoo, 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 and it's been eating figs somewhere. And figs, when you have a fig, all that sticky stuff inside, you know what is all that sticky stuff? What part of the fruit is that? Those are all the seeds. Okay, so figs, actually all the flowers are inside, so odd. But anyway, you have the seeds, so it's been eating. It's got a little fig on its foot. It lands on the tree. Then it flies away. But this little fig is like, ha-ha. It is going to sprout down to the ground, get some nutrients, and then it starts to grow up the tree. Now, as it gets bigger and stronger and it's growing up this tree, people say, it strangles it. That's not what happens. It grows, and it grows up so well, it's using this tree as support, it sends out its own leaves. The first tree is like, hey, 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 it sends out some more leaves.
If you see a picture of this on the test or an explanation, it's just a bunch of, like, it looks like a tangle of thinner trees all wrapped around together and growing into each other. I don't know if you've seen one in Florida. The house we just stayed at, Roger and Debbie actually have one right outside the lanai. It's huge.
And we just talked about, if it's sending out all these leaves, what is this initial tree not getting? Sunlight. So now this tree can't survive. So this tree literally just starts to wither away and die in there. But the ficus already has so much support that it can just now grow itself. So this is Dr. Fetterman is on a field course in Costa Rica. And how are we all kind of smunched in there is that is the ficus. And if you look up from the inside, doop, that's what you see. The original tree has just withered away because it didn't have enough photosynthesis for it to continue to live. And now it has it, and it doesn't need that original support anymore. After it
Matapala kills the original tree. Okay. Well, you've seen the video. You know it. That's a point she's making a lot of time.
kills the original tree, it actually becomes its own structure. And we have these here. You can look around. You can see them in the wrapped around palm trees. It's cool. Like, it's not good for the original tree, but. Okay, not my picture, for sure. So looking at some of the fauna, what is this? We're in Latin America. What would that be? Jaguar.
Leopard.
And then you have other kinds of creatures. Yeah, so what is that? Oh, what? Someone said something. It's a butterfly. I mean, yeah. Anyone know what kind of butterfly? Okay, it's a blue morpho butterfly. And these are huge. These huge butterflies, and they...
Looks about almost a foot wide.
I was a guide in Costa Rica, a naturalist guide, and one of the butterflies came by, and I was like, oh, look at the blue morpho, and the tourist like, oh, that was awesome, that was a great bluebird. I was like, oh, actually, that was a butterfly. He was like, that's too big to be a butterfly. Well, that may be true, however, that was one. He's like, that was a bird. And I was like, oh, you're paying, okay, whatever. But we all saw something else. So they're huge, and they're bright, and they're brilliant, but then when they close up their wings, whoop.
Now remember, these notes that you take are all worth $1 a piece. This stuff can really add up. And they can be useful when you take the lockdown.
That looks like this. You'd never know you had that inside. What's going on here? Why these kind of brownish, mushy colors?
Okay.
Yeah, so partly you have camouflage, and then you have the false eyes, which is exactly what you're talking about. These. And if you have false eyes, you were saying, so a predator, two things can happen. One, a predator sees this, they're like, whoa, that's a really big animal. I think I'm not going to eat it. Look at those big eyes. The other is, if you're going to eat an animal, you want to get its head. So it's like, I'm going to go for the part I can see. So it comes in this way, goes for one of these, and the butterfly shoots off this way. It doesn't have a bunch of false eyes right here. So you see a lot of these, and their wings are all chopped up, where birds, and it can shoot off the other way. So this is so you don't get eaten, and that makes sense. So if you're this way when you're closed, why do you look like that, where you are super, super vulnerable? Why would you have the blue when you open your wings? What is that about? Why not just be that when your wings are open and closed? Okay, that's actually a good. So one is you could blend in from the sky if you're looking at it from the other way, which is true for a predator. Yes. Yeah. It's also you want to be seen. You're like, look at that blue, baby. Ooh, you know, and then you close up. You're like, please don't eat me, please don't eat me. You look around, you're like, hey, baby, look at me. Oh, please don't eat me, please don't eat me. So it's finding that balance. The brightest and the most blue, yeah, you're going to mate. But you're also going to be most visible to predators. So it's this constant balance and equilibrium that's being maintained. Oh, that's not as cute as a butterfly. What is that? Tarantula. So we were in Ecuador, and you're walking along, and
Ecuador.
and then you see this big tarantula, and you're like, oh. And I don't like spiders. I work in the rainforest. I've had to work with it, but I don't like it. So, but you're out there. So you still got to look cool. You're like, oh, you know, everyone's like, oh, you know, click, click, click. But what you need for this picture, I mean, for all you guys know, it's some tiny spider, and I've blown it up to be scary. So when you take a picture of something like this, you need something for scale. So you take something of a known dimension, and you put it next to the specimen, and then you know how big it is. So we said, okay, how about a pencil? Like, cool. You put the pencil next to the spider. So we all did that. Well, you do it. So finally I took a pencil, and I was like, threw it near, and she went over, and she went, whoa, and she jumped on the pencil, and we all went, whoa! All exciting. And so she attacked the pencil. We all were deeply frightened. And then everyone's like, yeah, just kidding, cool, okay, you know. Let me take my picture, click, 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 look, we've got the size, we're good. And then there's that look where everyone says, who can pick the pencil up? And I teach a conservation class. I do not advocate littering, and I will just let y'all know that pencil stayed right where it was. They were like, I don't see it either.